a repetitive search, and there are fundamentally two categories, two types. One is basic research, another one is applied research. Applied research supports basic research by giving it more problems to explore and to create new knowledge, whereas fundamental research solves a problem, and because of that it creates knowledge which shall be used by the applied research. And we also have learned that, at least in the minds of researchers, there shall not be any controversy telling that I do fundamental, I am great, or I do applied, I am great because I'm making it useful for the society and so on. Both are really required for total upliftment of our life. So whether you do a fundamental or you do an applied research, in any case, I want research to be innovative. In what sense? I call it as an innovative research, in the sense that it should make some improvement on existing. Because of my research work I carried out for the last couple of years, and there shall be certain improvements, and it must have introduced something novel, something original, because as long as I feel I am unique, I feel I am something different than the others, I can always think differently. So because of that, I must have introduced something into the field of my interest. It must have devised even a new way of solving a method, or it must have introduced a new way of look. When computers started coming up, earlier our great teachers used to go with chalk and talk. I mean, a piece of chalk, then used to write on the blackboard and so on. Later on, when computers started coming up, we just have gone with computer-based instructions showing on the monitor, and then later on we got it linked with overhead projectors, so that PPTs, these technologies started coming up. These are all called new way of making our presentation much effective. And nowadays is not that I have to go and touch the computer to move the slide. I can control it by a remote. I hold a remote and control it. And today we are talking about not even to hold physically a remote. I just operate the slide with my eyeball movement, right? So this is the progress in research, upliftment, improving, taking it to a next level. So it could even be a process of exploiting successfully. Not necessarily a new idea, even could be something which is old but is used today for betterment, exploiting successfully some idea. All in all, because of my research, it must have created a new dimension of performance. New dimension of performance. I mean, I become more a contributory type of research. So most of the times when I interact with research scholars and other faculties who want to pursue research with a question that, why do you want to do research? And most of the times I just have heard of people saying that I want to contribute something to the society. I appreciate a lot the eagerness, the enthusiasm that a candidate has towards contributing something to the society. Well appreciated, but I advise generally that think of contributing society later stage, but see that your research contributes to your performance. See that your research contributes to your performance. It must add up some new dimension to your performance. Look, you are basically teachers. You must not have got your PhD. You must not have got into a research environment. You are now teaching with certain degree of confidence. You are now teaching with certain degree of abilities. You are now in a position to read and digest. You are now with certain degree of ability to address the students. You must have acquired certain degree of authority to speak on the topic of your interest. Later, you take up a PhD on some topic of your interest and then pursue. After completion of PhD, the degree with which you would address the students, the confidence with which you address the students, the authority with which you are capable of presenting your knowledge to the students, and the way in which the maturity with which you would evaluate the students, when compared to that of earlier to your PhD, you must see a big difference. You must see a big difference. I mean, what you were before PhD, what you are after PhD, if you take the difference should be considerable. And I say it added up a new dimension to your performance. I mean, that's what I expect. First, contribute to your knowledge, contribute to your experience, contribute to your personality, and see that you grow up big. And that I call it as a contributory research. And the moment you grow up, and if that is true with everybody, I'm sure that the society has gone up. So this is what I call it. And later you think of mutually contributing, right? So that's what. Why should a teacher do research? Because teachers are responsible for the generation, next generation. We have to take up that responsibility of making next generation very acceptable, pleasant citizens. Today, if you see anything wrong, and every day in the newspaper, we see really bad news. Unfortunate. Who are responsible for it? The politicians, are the engineers, are the doctors, are the lawyers? Who are responsible for it? I say, being a teacher, it is our responsibility. If somebody commits a mistake today, either mother must not have taught him the correct one, or teacher must not have taught him well. So mother is also a teacher. That's why most of the times I end up saying that the teaching community has a greater responsibility in building up the next generation. And the teacher should know what is called research, should get into what is called research. The research, doing research doesn't mean that you are teaching mathematics, you have to take up research in mathematics only. You can do research in society. You can, I mean, what is research? Fundamentally, an active process of inquiry. Find something which is unanswered in your area of interest, right? And then find a new way of answer that question. That's what I expect the teachers to be in frontier always than any other. If lawyer commits a mistake, nothing happens. Lawyer commits a mistake, nothing happens. One body may be hung, above 1 feet above the ground. If doctor commits a mistake, nothing will happen. A body may be buried, 1 feet below the earth. If an engineer commits a mistake, a building may collapse. 100, 200, 1,000 people may go out. But if teacher commits a mistake, it is a generation problem. The entire next generation gets collapsed. So that's what I say most of the times, the teachers should be a researcher and researchers should teach the students. Most of the times, I'm sorry that we end up saying that ours is not a research institution. Ours is only a teaching institution. To do teaching, to be more effective, because dear friends, today everything is available on Google. If a student sit in front of the Google on topic of his interest, then he can get many videos freely available so that he can listen to, not to you, not to me, an excellent lecture by an eminent scholar outside. If that is the case, then why should be here in the university? What do I teach my students? I should answer that question, right? To be that effective, to attract my students, to attend my lecture, I have to, unknowingly, I have to be inevitably into what is called a research. Research is the only one which can make me and not only knowledgeable, but an experienced. Look, in my lecture hall, that's not that I should teach. It is that my experience should speak. So to grow up to that level of making my experience talk in a lecture hall, not myself talking, but my experience talking, then I have to get into what is called research. So research is such a prominent thing which everyone, especially, look, why teachers, even ants, ants are known for their excellent research. Buffaloes do research every day. Donkeys do carry out research unknowingly. And in fact, in computer science, in our area of specialization, we have an optimization, technique, which we call it as an ant optimization technique. Why we are calling it as an ant optimization technique? Look, ants are so intelligent in finding out the shortest distance between their source to the destination. If the ant wants to, you must have noticed on the wall, ants will not go in a random way, they go in a straight line. From source to a destination, they always find a straight line, because straight line is the shortest distance to be traveled. So ants are good at optimizing their way to reach the destination, and we are. That's a searching problem, ants are in search of their food. So when they attempt searching for their food, they go in a straight line because that is the shortest distance which gets covered. So similarly, in computer science, when we deploy a search technique, searching for information, searching for websites, searching for some data on the Google, so we deploy an algorithm which mimics that. And such an algorithm is what is called ants colony, ants optimization technique. So look, even ants are good at research unknowingly. Then teachers should be very strong in carrying out the research. We are responsible. We build it tomorrow. And we have to motivate our students. We have to create a fire, fire in the young brain. And look, when I start delivering my lecture, even the dull brain, very dull brain in my lecture should be something like vibrant. So I should create such vibrations even in the dullest brain in my lecture. To be rise up to that level, to grow up to that level, to be successful in my teaching, I have to be unknowingly inevitably into a researcher. I can inspire my student, right? If I allow them to think big, I must allow the teacher, students to think big in their own perspective. I must allow them to grow big in their own pursuit. I must see that they perform big in their future life. To see that my students will do better in future life, I got to be the ultimate person. I got that responsibility, and that can be possible only when I am into research. So look, I consider myself to be a successful teacher on the day of retirement if I can count at least 10% of the students who have been graduated because of my teaching are found to be nationally known. And at least 5% of the students who are graduated because of my teaching for the last 30 years are internationally known. I'm not talking about 100% students, 50% student, 20. At least 10% of them should be of national level. At least 5% of them should be at international level. Then I say I am a successful teacher. To be such a successful teacher, what really matters is not only my knowledge, my attitude, and not only my attitude, my experience, my wiseness. To grow up to that level of becoming wise, experienced, great attitude, a role model teacher, I got to be always in the front line. I mean, as I mentioned, in Google, everything is available. If I read through the textbook just a day before my lecture, then I say that I am only one day ahead of my student. If I read through the textbook one semester in advance to teach my student, then I say that I am only one semester ahead of as if I am a senior student. That should not be the case for a good teacher. The good teacher should always be with a great experience on the topic that he teaches. To gain that experience and such a maturity to be capable of delivering, right? It's not that you are thinking and talking, it's that your blood cells should trigger out so that your experience will continuously speak. And that is what the successfulness of a teacher. So look, inevitably, we should get into the teaching, whether we love to do it or not. Getting into research doesn't mean that you have to enroll yourself for PhD and then acquire the PhD. No, not necessarily. Unfortunate that the UGC has made it very mandatory for a professor to become, person to become professor, one should have a PhD. Unfortunate, that should not be the mandatory, but you have to be in research. Without even enrolling for PhD, you have to do something which uplifts your knowledge base, which makes you much more experienced personality. So that's what. Now, if I just talk about research categories, basically I said that there are two types, one is basic, other one is applied. Now I talk about the research category based on the nature of that, what I do, irrespective of whether it is basic research or applied research. But basically, I see that there are three categories of research. One is exploratory kind of research. Exploratory kind of research is the one where you explore many interesting avenues for researching. I mean, just explore the problems which are still unsolved. Try to find out problems which are unsolved yet. I mean, you just make a list of problems to be researched. So in exploratory kind of research, as the name itself indicate, it tries to structure out and identifies a new set of problems. Probably if some of you are from the background of mathematics, if not, you must have heard of Ramanujan, right? Great Ramanujan, Indian scientist. What did he do? Think. He used to think. His brain used to explore. LHS equal to RHS. Unfortunate that most of the time he was unable to, find the mapping from LHS to RHS. But suddenly he used to guess this must be equal to this. This LHS left hand side is equal to RHS. But how to argue that this can be converted into this form? Even he did not know that. He went on listing out such problems. Today, if you go to any department of mathematics, which is pursuing research, like Manasa Gangotri, we have a well-established department of studies in mathematics. If you go and talk to the professors over there, I'm sure if there are 10 professors out of 10, at least 5 of them would say that I am researching the topic mentioned by Ramanujan, the statements of Ramanujan. Not only that, sometimes I'm really surprised to hear that. So one of the professors say that I'm working on 27th statement of Ramanujan. Somebody say that I'm working on 35th statement of Ramanujan. And look at, they also remember the number, the serial number of the statement of the problem. The Ramanujan went on exploring many topics for further researching. Even some of them are still unsolved problems for mathematicians. That is a wonderful kind of research called exploratory type of research. So Ramanujan has expressed a problem. He had not given the solution to the problem. And now I take up that problem and find a solution to it. I attempt towards constructing a solution to the problem which is well established. And such a kind of a research which is responsible in solving a known problem or finding or designing a solution to a known problem is what is called constructive research. I mean, it develops solutions to a problem. So I just have constructed a solution, but solution is synthetically, experimentally validated, but it has not been practically, established, practically demonstrated. Then you take up that solution to a practical environment, see that it can be deployable, see that it can be used for a day-to-day activity, make it really applied practically. And such a type of research is what is called empirical research. Look, dear friends, this empirical research is on testing the feasibility of a solution. Yes, the middle one has given the solution. First one has explored a problem. The second one has given a solution, and how that solution is feasible for a limited scenario. It's what is called empirical. Look, exploratory, even you can think of a single thesis of 5 chapters, wherein the first chapter is an introductory and last chapter is a conclusion. And in the middle 3 chapters, you explored 2 each in each chapter, new problems. First chapter, I mean the second chapter of the thesis, first forget, last forget. The second one is the first of the research. This chapter should talk about 2 new problems for others to research, others to work on. It's not good enough to mention what is a problem. It is, you have to mention the parameters of the problem. What are the parameters which really make the problem even today a unsolved problem? Why that problem is really difficult to research? What properties are the parameters of the problem has made it a research topic? And what I got to do and where I got to tackle it? You have to explain all attributes to just topic. At least and parallelly there could be 6 juniors of you will continue working, so that they cite your thesis as one of the best reference material. That could be what is the strength of exploratory research. Constructive research, you take this and then start working on it. So it's good if you have a thesis where you yourself opened up a new. Find an application for it. and so that you demonstrate. That could be a wonderful thesis if the thesis has all the three categories. The great Indian who could grab Nobel Prize, the first scientist of non-whitish, who could grab the Nobel Prize was C.V. Raman. You heard of that C.V. Raman, right? Professor C.V. Raman did all the three. He explored the problem and then he constructed a solution and finally demonstrated also empirically. That's why he could grab the Nobel Prize, right? So C.V. Raman's work could be an example for all the three. That doesn't mean that they are going to carry out all the three. You can carry out only one, you can carry out only second one, you can carry out only third one, or any two of these, and so on and so forth. Okay. So basically, I categorize any kind of research into one of these three. And besides this, we can also categorize the research based on the location, physical location where the researcher has spent maximum time during his research activities. I mean, had somebody spent maximum time in the library only, reads, and then after 3 years of complete reading of many, many books, he comes out with a new book, summary of all, but reasoned out, inferred, deduced, some new storybook, right? And that is what is called library type of research, library research. Some people, like experimental people, will simply stand inside the laboratory, will simply sit inside the laboratory, will simply work with the research scholars, always inside the laboratory. They spend maximum time only in the laboratory to come out with a result of the research. Then I say it is a lab research, laboratory research. Our farmers are extremely good in carrying out research unknowingly. They have not enrolled for any PhD topic of any university or institution. They do everyday research on the field. That's called field research, right? So could be a field research, could be a teacher, a good teacher, good high school teachers I am talking about, they do research in classroom. Because every year, every time, they face a new problem because the new set of students will take admissions and every student will have a different behavior. How to control, right? Education. They do classroom research. I mean, based on the physical location where the maximum time is spent by a research scholar, we can also label a research either as a field research or as a classroom research or a library research or a lab research and so on and so forth. Look, dear friends, you have to remember here, and I should not forget telling you that there is nothing like a well-solved problem today. And no problem can be assumed to be well solved. That problem appears to be well solved, but as long as you are individually different, as long as you have something in your ability called, a diversification of thought, you can always giving it a new dimension. When you can think of giving it a new dimension, obviously you will find a new version of the problem, which is already well solved. To quote an example here, I'm just recollecting my readings, Look, the research topic is GOD, God. What is the topic? Topic is GOD, God. People wanted to do research on the topic or the notion called God. And the topic was taken by farmers. And the topic was taken by the farmers, Farmer wanted to own way what is called God. God is, after all, what? Something which is beyond our ability, something which is much powerful than a human being. Like I am a farmer, I am thinking of, there is something which is beyond my ability. There is something which can provide me whatever I want. If I conduct the puja, if I submit myself to him with a great devotion, then probably I can get my problem solved. He must be rich in what I want. The God must be rich so that God can give me anything of my want. Then I just thought of what I really want. Then I said, what I really want. When I just looked at what I really wanted, I being a farmer, oh look, I want badly, I am in need of water because I like to plant, I like to seed the when I go for seeding, then I got to pour water, so rain should come, and so on. Then God should be able to give me the good enough water. Then God should also give me, because most of the times I can take care of my land, my crops during daytime because there is a sun ray, but during night, unfortunately, pig may come, some other animals may come, How do I take care of? It's very dark, I cannot walk into my field. Then I want light during dark. I want like a torch Look, then farmer thought of Shiva, the Lord Shiva. The Lord Shiva having Gange, the water in his head, and then a moon at the top so that he can provide me the light during. Because he is like a human being, then he has to sleep. That the God has to sleep. That's what I thought of then. Where does he sleep? Then he thought of my ability is a mat-like structure called skin of an animal. Right? Then I, being a farmer, enjoy during 2 seasons. One is harvesting season. I enjoy a lot. I play, I dance. And when there is no rain and I am into difficulty, then also I dance. Then Shiva dances at 2 different instances. One is when he is happy, when he is angry, right? And look at the color of Shiva, dress of Shiva. It's not like a doctor's dress. It's not an engineer's dress. It's not even like a teacher's, dressing. Shiva's while cultivating in the land, the farmer wears only the bottom, not the top. That's what is Shiva. Look at the tool used by Shiva. It's Trishula, exactly required for the farmer. And what is his vehicle? It's a bull, right? It's an ox, because that is a vehicle that generally a farmer uses. It's not like Innova car. It's not an aeroplane, right? It is a bull, because that is the ability. I mean, when farmers wanted to give a structure, an instance for the notion called God, they thought of Lord Shiva. And all properties of Shiva resembles the properties of farmer and their requirement. On the other hand, when the same topic was taken by the business class of the people who are known for their businesses, right? They thought of Vishnu. Look at Vishnu. Where does that Vishnu sleeps? He sleeps on the snake, you generally say. No, it is not a snake. Strictly speaking, it is a fring effect cushion bed, comfortably sleeping. Look at the ornament that he wears. Vishnu wears ornament. Even our girls don't wear so many ornaments. That shows the richness. Business people are rich in thinking. They are rich in what they want. They want money. That's why Vishnu should have so much of gold. And what is available in the chest? It is a Lakshmi, not Gange. And what is his vehicle? The vehicle is what is called flying, like aeroplane. What is his tool? Is a remote controlled chakra, right? You can control remotely. That's what the business people. Look, all the aspects of Vishnu resembles the aspects or the properties of the business class people. I mean, the same topic called God, but there are 2 instances as the outcome. One is a Lord Krishna, another one is a Lord Vishnu, and this Lord Shiva, another one is Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva is created by farmers, and Lord Vishnu is created by business class people. Why these 2 instances differ, though the notion called God is same? Because this God topic is solved by 2 different set of people with a different set of background. And when you are with a different background, when you have come with a different reason, when you have got a different individuality, and as long as you feel you are totally different than others, I'm sure that you can give it a new dimension. That's what I just wanted to tell you. There is nothing like a topic which is well solved and researched. As long as you think differently, as long as you have an ability to diversify your thinking, I'm sure that you can always think of giving it a new dimension. This is what I just wanted to touch upon at this junction of presenting you what is and different versions or the categories of research. So, if I now sum up the research process which I presented since morning 10 o'clock, the research process as the following. Number 1, formulation of the topic. We just formulate the topic, identify the scope, identify the objectives, the purpose, whatnot, motivation, everything should be made very clear. And then you go for generating the hypothesis. I told you, what is hypothesis? An educated guess. Hypothesis is a guess, but not a random guess. It is an educated guess with a background of education. I generate the hypothesis, and preferably you go with multiple hypotheses. Don't go with a single hypothesis. Instead, go with multiple hypotheses. Generate multiple hypotheses, work towards them, and if you become successful for 1 or 2 of them, be happy, make a thesis and submit. So don't go for 1 by 1 in serial. Better, I recommend you go with parallel with multiple hypotheses, right? And then how do I generate the hypothesis? There are two ways of generating hypothesis. These are the two different principles of learning. One is inductive learning, other one is deductive learning. Inductive learning is the one which takes you from a specialized cases to generalized. I mean, specialization to generalization. You study individually the cases one by one, and then collect your experience, assimilate your experience towards one which can be a general, like Pythagorean theorem. So you must have, while teaching, while teaching student on Pythagorean theorem, one way is construct a different right angle triangles and establish the relation between three sides of the triangle. Solve 10 such examples and finally conclude that, and having understood all these, 10 examples, we can conclude that this is what is the relation between the hypothesis and other two sides of the right angle triangle. This is one way. This is what I call it as an inductive technique. Most of the times it teaches, we follow inductive way of teaching. I mean, examples, quote the examples, and finally take the commonality, assimilate them, generalize it. Moving from specific to general is what is called inductive learning. Whereas on the other hand, if you go in reverse, like take the Pythagorean rule, prove it, learn the proof of it, which is in general. So accept it, and then take an example for it, argue that it is old good, it holds good here. That's what is called deductive knowledge. Deductive knowledge works based on the principles of elimination, whereas inductive knowledge works based on the principles of assimilation, aggregation, right? So exactly like, if there is a question with multiple choice, if I know the answer, I tick it. If I don't know the answer, then what do? I try to eliminate one by one, which are not potentially the possible solutions. And the moment I eliminate three, I end up with one, though I'm not sure that it is the answer, because I just end up with only one not being eliminated. Then I say it is an answer. That's what is called inductive knowledge. Inductive knowledge moves from generalized to a specialization. So these are the two principles of learning. But strictly speaking, in research process, there's nothing like purely inductive. There is nothing like purely deductive. It is hybridized. Sometimes I do induction, suddenly go with the deduction, and then go with induction. Hybridize both inductive learning and deductive learning to generate the hypothesis. Once hypotheses have been generated, then we have to justify them. We have to prove them, establish them. How do I establish my hypothesis? There are basically two ways. One is, if you are a theoretical scientist, then you can think of coming out with a more formal way of justifying your hypothesis with strong mathematical background. I call it as a theorem and proving and lemma and then proving, etc., which could be made clear. On the other hand, if you are an experimental person, or if your topic is more into experimentation rather into theoretical aspects of the topic, then you go for collecting the data, right? Collect the data, gather the data, analyze the gathered data, establish your hypothesis, right? Sometimes it happens that, I gather the data, I sit and then analyze the data, conduct the experiment, and try to establish my hypothesis. Unfortunately, I fail in it. What is the reason for it? Then I understand that the data which I gathered may not be sufficient. The data which I gathered may not be so sufficient for me to establish the hypothesis. Then I have to go for regathering the data, reacquire the data. One, acquire, analyze. If you find it insufficient, go back, regather and reanalyze. Because you gathered a new data, you have to reanalyze it. So look at, this is how it goes. Establishing the hypothesis is not one-time gathering and analyzing the data. It is repetitive gathering and analyzing. I mean, regather, reanalyze, regather, reanalyze, establish, regather, reanalyze, reestablish, regather, reanalyze, reestablish. If not, go back, regather, reanalyze, reestablish. Look at here. It's not one way. It is multiple way. I mean, repetition. This establishment of hypothesis is a loop. I am inside this loop. Like a ring road in Mysore, where I start, I come back to the same place. If I continue driving, I come back to the same place. I continue driving as long as I am unhappy. The moment I am happy, I stop doing it. Look, the moment I got my hypothesis established, I stop it. Otherwise, I regather, reanalyze, and so on. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens that however serious I am, However effort that I have put in to regather and reanalyze the data, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to establish the hypothesis. Eventually, I reached to a state of understanding or learning that whatever the gathering in the data I did, unfortunately, I failed in hypothesizing and establishing hypothesis. Then it's not the fault with the regathering and reanalyzing. It is a fault with the hypothesis itself. Go back, rehypothesize it. Go back, rehypothesize it. Look, dear friends, understand here. There is a one loop within gathering and reanalyzing the data and establishing the hypothesis. You do it many, many times. And then the moment you understood that, however you do, you cannot be successful, then you go up, revise the hypothesis and do, revise. Again, re comes there. Learn, relearn, cognition, recognition. Cognition is important, understanding, but recognition is more important. Without recognition, cognition is of no use, and that is more important. So do learn. It is relearn. You teach in the classroom, students will learn. You give them the assignments, students will relearn. My interest in giving them the assignment is not that I don't know the solution to those assignment problems. My interest is to push them towards not into learn, but into relearn at home. Look, learn is important, but relearn is more important. Relearning is more important than learning actually. Unless students gets into relearning, you cannot become a more experienced person of understanding. So re is more important. Here, what is I'm technically presenting the definition of research here. Look, generating the hypothesis and then proving the hypothesis is a search process. I'm searching for knowledge of my interest. I'm searching for the reason on my topic. While searching, so I am not doing it one time from top to bottom once. I do it again and again, again and again. If I fail in this smaller loop, I go to an upper loop, again I do it again and again. Look, the search is not one time straight from top to bottom search. It is a repetitive search. That's why the search is called research. Look, there are basically two nested loops. One is an outer loop at hypothesis level, another one is an inner loop at a data level. This repeats multiple times, and then this repeats multiple times, and then I become successful. This repetitive search inside a two nested loop search is what is called a research. So after doing so, you become successful in hypothesizing and then go with a conclusion. Once you are done with a conclusion, don't ever forget to document your research. Look, what is more important than doing research is a documentation. Unless you are capable of properly documenting your research outcome, your research process, your research effort, your experience of research, your research will not be of any use. Imagine that there is a medical doctor. Imagine simply an example, a medical doctor. Every day he does a new research. He comes out with a new medicine. But the moment he goes home in the evening, he drinks up that medicine and then sleeps comfortably well, and gets up next day in the morning, comes to his research lab, and then he builds up a new medicine again and creates a new medicine, goes home, he himself drinks it, and then comes back next day. Every day he creates a new medicine. He lives for about 50 years. Every year he creates about 100, let's assume that, and 50 years, there are about 100 medicines he created, but he has not documented any one of them. This is one type of doctor. Imagine another doctor. He doesn't create 100, 5,000 medicines. Instead, he creates only 50 medicines, but everything has been documented. Now, which is really more supportive? The second one, though he created only 50, but unfortunately, the first one, an intellectual doctor who created 5,000 medicines, but unfortunately, none of them is available for us today. That's what I mean. Unless you properly document, your research is of no use at all. In my experience, which I have been seeing for the last roughly about 28 years, I understood that the effort which is required to put in by the candidate to do research is only minimum, 40%. But remaining 60 to 70% of the effort has got to be spent on documentation. Because documentation should be made very pakka in the sense that if you want to communicate X across, X should be conveyed, not X plus epsilon, not X minus epsilon. Nothing like, plus or minus epsilon. X should be conveyed as X only. I mean, if I want to picturize Lord Ganesha, I just have imagined Lord Ganesha in my, mind. I want to picturize it on the blackboard. When I draw the picture of Lord Ganesha, and if you look at it, even without labeling it as Lord Ganesha, you should be able to understand that I drew Ganesha only. That Ganesha should not appear like an elephant. So that is what is called documentation. I mean, documentation is a process of communicating your ideas across. While communicating your ideas across, your idea called X should be communicated as X only. Nothing missing, nothing misleading. Look, you should be very careful on these two aspects during documentation. One is misleading. Another one is missing. Your documentation should be independent of these two aspects, both missing and misleading aspects. And basically, there are two types of documents. One is a publishing document. A publishing is a kind of a document which we create to circulate our ideas and knowledge across contemporary researchers. I want to transform my learning into others. That's all. Come out with a textbook, come out with the research material, come out with a research article, come out with a conference presentation, whatever you say. My interest is to publishizing it. The other one is a manual kind of documents. If you buy a new cell phone, mobile phone, go to a mobile shop, buy a new cell phone, you will get a document along, a small book-like material along. That's not publishing document. It is a manual kind of document. Manuals are generally drafted by the researcher to make the end user understand it, or to educate the end users on how to use my product. When I productize my ideas, then there must be an end user. He must be taught, he must be explained how to use my product. And that is what is called. If I buy a new car, a four-wheeler, a new two-wheeler, there is a manual kind of book, which will come along. If you go through that manual, you will understand every component of the car and what is for what, how to operate the car, how to ignite the car, how to keep the lights on, right? And so on and so forth. Everything is explained there. I mean, it is to operate. So basically, any research process creates documents for two purposes. One is for transforming the knowledge across the community. The other one is for making end user capable of using my product. And these are respectively called publishing document and manual kinds of documents. So my question is now, success in research. This is what the research process I explained, starting from formulation through hypothesis generation and establishing a process and then concluding and finally document. Everything is fine. When do I say that my research is really successful? Who is responsible for it? Largely depends on what? Is it a research scholar? Is it a research supervisor? Is that the topic which really matters? Then I understand that it is the ability of the researcher. It is understanding of the researcher. It is the domain knowledge of the researcher. It is a commitment of the researcher. All in all, love and affinity that researcher has towards the problem. I don't want to read the next line. I wish you read the next line, which is in the bracket. Researcher should get married to or with the problem. Please read it in a broad spectrum. Don't take it in a narrow domain of conventional marriage. It is in a broad way. Married. The research scholar should feel that he is married with the problem. He is married to the problem, right? Like the moment I got married, I started loving my wife. And because of that marriage, I am blessed by 2 kids. And my responsibility is now to make them good citizens for tomorrow. I went in search of good schools for my kids. I admitted them and I take care of them. I teach them, and then I get them introduced to my colleagues, get them introduced to my relatives. I see that I project them as good citizens tomorrow. I'm responsible for all. Similarly here, the moment a problem is assigned to a research scholar should feel that I got married to this problem. It is mine. It is my responsibility to see that this problem will grow up. And because of I am married to this problem, my children have got to be generated in the form of publications, in the form of manuals, in the form of products, in the form of solutions, in the form of results, whatever it say, some brain children are created. The moment brain children are created, you should not say simply leave them apart. You have to canvas them. You have to project them for their goodness and see that they are well appreciated by the contemporary researchers. That is what the spirit of the term called get married. Look, in my opinion, we have got two types of marriages. One is a personal marriage for life, family and all. Another one is a professional marriage. This is a research topic. Once you are into that, you are supposed to dedicate for it. So from 10 to 5, at least you feel that you have got a professional family where you are married with this problem, you dedicate yourself. After 5 in the evening, till morning 10 o'clock, you are got your own personal family conventional marriage. This is another. I mean, if you are already married and if you want to pursue research, it is your second marriage. If you are not married, if you are unmarried bachelor and you are taking up a research, then I say it is your first marriage. Your family conventional marriage is the second marriage. So every one of us have got two marriages indeed, two families, conventional, personal, another one is a professional. So researchers should have that a brain that it is my responsibility. Look, I am telling you that indirectly that the research success depends on only the research scholar, ability, understanding, etc. Then you may have a question. Sir, if the success depends only on the research scholars and its attitude, then what is the role of supervisor? Why do we require supervisor, right? You may have that question. Because supervisor has not come anywhere here while attending to the success in research. Then I say that supervisor is like a parent. Supervisor has got the held responsibility, great responsibility of matching between a candidate and the research topic. Like the moment my son grows up to the year of 20 plus, then I think of looking for a suitable girl for him, right? Synchronization. I should find a best pair to conduct the marriage. And I should not be hurry in conducting the marriage so that assign any problem to the research scholar the moment research scholar comes to me. I should learn, I should know what is he, where is he good, whether he good in mathematics or in programming, what kind of topics he really loves, what are the weakness of the research scholar, what are the strength of the research scholar, and based on that I have to coin a new problem for him. Look, supervisor has got a great responsibility of finding the best pair, best match between a candidate and the research topic. I have n number of topics. I have a k number of research scholars. What to be assigned to whom is a good mapping question, and that should be attended by the research supervisor. And I must see that the researcher is very happy while carrying out the research on the topic assigned. He runs his family with a very great happiness, at least for 4 to 5 years, so that there shall be any divorce for it. I should see that there shall not be any divorce for that family, and I must conduct the marriage at the right time, like a priest. Like a priest, I got to conduct that marriage, assigning a problem to the student. Unless the student gets matured enough to take up the problem, I should not be hurry in assigning him a problem. I should train him, I should facilitate him, right? I should give him kind of facilitation. Whatever the facility he wants, I should give him first and then make him mature. I wait till my son grows up and becomes independent, right? And completes all of his education. Then only I plan for a marriage. Similarly here, I should see that the research scholar gets matured enough to take up the problem and start working on it. Otherwise, there shall be a divorce for it. That should not happen. That is the biggest responsibility of a supervisor. And besides, beyond this, supervisor should look at the documentation. Because in my opinion, The research scholars are extremely good in carrying out the research, extremely good in thinking. They are very dynamic. They are very powerful. They are very mature. But unfortunately, not so good in audience. That's what I had seen. Experiment and generating a new knowledge, but they don't know how to document it. Then I myself get involved in documentation. I spend most of the time with my research scholars only for documentation purpose, advising them. This is how you have to present. This is how you have to communicate. This is how the linguistic quality. This is the sentence. This is how you have to draft the sentence. And same sentence cannot be used anywhere, right? No duplication. Linguistic quality should be maintained. Very attractive way of reading, because I am writing a paper not for me. I am writing a paper for a reader. I must write a paper as if I am a reader, right? That's what is called documentation. Supervisor should spend considerable time with the scholars, especially for documentation. So following are the different types of documents we are talking about in research process. One is a proposal, another one is an abstract, next one is a synopsis, right? One more is a research paper, and then a thesis. These are the different types of documents we are talking about. Proposals, as the name itself indicates, it is a document which conveys plans of action. Please, some of you are with unmuted audio, mute them. So proposals are the documents which convey the plans. While writing a proposal for grants or writing a proposal for acceptance something, in addition to explaining what you want to work on, you have got to explain why you have got to work on. What are your strengths? Why should it be granted for you only? In what way you are really making it unique? That's what is called a proposal, a small document which conveys plans of action. Abstract, it is a gist of accomplishment, but it in a compressed way. And such a compressed version of accomplishment, a document which explains everything, but about what, without explaining how and why. And that's what is called an abstract. An extended abstract is what is called synopsis. I mean, in the abstract, I just have mentioned what is accomplished, but in the synopsis, in addition to what, I also explain how it is accomplished. And in research paper, you just write it for transformation of knowledge. If somebody reads your research article on some topic of your interest, should be able to become as experienced as you are. I read somebody's paper today. I spent only 3 hours reading that paper of 10 to 15 pages. The moment I end up reading and I feel that I understood this thoroughly, then I must be as experienced as the creators. That should be the style of documenting good paper. So research articles are generally drafted for the purpose of transforming the knowledge across the globe. And report or the thesis is the final detailed container. Let me underline, it is called a detailed container. What do you mean by detailed container? Container means something holding others. Container, a repository. It holds many things. What does that? It holds your experience, both negative, positive. There is nothing like a failure in research, but there could be a failure in PhD, because PhD, you have defined well objectives, but research, there is nothing like a failure. Even failure is a good lesson for others. Your failure could be a good lesson for others. That's why there is nothing like failure in research. So hence, a detailed container. See that in your thesis, you explain both positive aspect and as well negative aspects of research. You have done your research for the last 4 years and you have come out with a thesis. If somebody spends a month to read your thesis, and within that 1 month, he should be in a position to gain the similar experience as you gained. That is what is called detailed container. Otherwise, I don't say that the thesis is complete in all sense. So, paper publication. Why should we publish paper? Because it is a way to measure the research success. More the number of papers you published, quantitatively good enough work you have carried out, not necessarily quality-wise. Number of papers doesn't decide the quality, but the number of papers decides the quantity, the amount of work which you carried out. On the other hand, in which portal you have published it, in which journal you published it, who are the editorial board members, who are the reviewers of that papers, their qualification, their personality decides the quality of your work. So there may be a person X who published only one article, and there is another person Y who published 10 articles, but quantity wise, the Y must have done better work than X, but quality wise, X must have done better than Y. I mean, a number of publications doesn't decide the quality, but decides the quantity. But where is that publication? In which portal? Who are the reviewers? Who are the editorial board member? That what are their qualification? Right? What is the scope of that? And what is its circulation rate? All decides the quality of the. Anyway, publishing a paper is a method of measuring the research outcome. So it measures both quantitatively as well as qualitatively. Basically, there are two types of publications. One we call it as journal peer reviewed. Another one we call it as conference proceedings. In the conference proceedings, generally we have the following three levels. Sometimes it happens that, there will be a call for papers, a notification which says that, we are now calling for submission of research articles by eminent research scholars, and you just submit the papers. The moment you submit the paper, today in the morning you submit a paper, and in the evening you get a message stating that your paper is accepted for presentation. This is one type of conference. I mean, there shall not be, strictly speaking, review. There shall not be any review at all. No review takes place, but your paper gets accepted for presentation. You are invited to make a presentation during the conference. The purpose of such conferences is to provide you a common platform where researchers from different geographical locations can come together and meet together, have a discussion. Their interest is to provide the environment where many of us can go together and exchange our thoughts, exchange our ideas of research. That's the purpose of that first level conference. So paper will be submitted, suddenly they get accepted, everybody will be invited for exchange of knowledge. No review, no publication, nothing will come out, only seminar will come out. The another one is a review, but not so critical. 100 people will submit the paper. They take about 1 month to look at all the papers and they review it, and the comments will be shared back to the users, back to the authors, and author will be invited. You come, but while coming, you revise your work and attend all these questions. Come back while presenting your paper, please include this also. And in such conferences, the publication will not come out during the conference. The only seminar will be published. But after conference, there will be a jury of experts. When you make a presentation, there will be a committee of 3 members, and they look at you presenting, they interact with you a couple of questions, they take your feedback, they share their questions with you. Then they will give you another 2 to 3 months back, after conference. Go back to your institutions, your research laboratories, reconduct the experiment, attend to all those questions shared by those jury of experts, and resubmit the paper. Then finally they come out with the post-conference proceedings. And such post-conference proceedings where your complete article is published, printed, you can be counted as a publication. So second one is such conferences reviewed but not critical, but post-conference proceedings are expected. The third one is an indexed conference. In the indexed conference, generally what happens is the following. We plan organizing a conference at least 24 months in advance. I mean, now it is November 2022. I notify or announce conduction of conference for 2024 November, 2 years in advance. And I give about 8 months for conducting experiment, drafting a good paper. Again, the deadline for submitting a paper is next August. And then I take about 3 to 4 months, and I see that every paper will be minimum reviewed by 3 experts. I take about 3 months. Next November, September, October, November, next 23 November, first round of review will be shared to the authors. Then we'll give them again 3 months. 24 January is the deadline to submit the revised version of the paper. Again, that revised version of the manuscript will be reviewed again. We'll take another 3 months, May 24. And by the end of May 24, we decide out of 100 paper, only 20 are found to be good and 80 are found to be not good. In spite of given such a sufficient time, the authors have failed in revising the paper to the level of our expectation. then 80 papers gets rejected, only 20 get accepted. And we'll notify that your papers are accepted and your papers are unfortunately rejected. Please come and attend the conference. Please you resubmit the complete version by August of 24, and book will be printed and will be circulated on the day of conference. And that's what I call it as indexed conferences today. So these are well planned in advance. On the other hand, the journal papers are like indexed conference, third level conferences, but the only difference is in indexed third level conferences, it is a time bound. Second level, if I am unhappy, we simply reject. But in the case of journal, even in the second level, if I am unhappy, but I find that there is something interesting in your work, there is some idea, there is some support, there is some literature review, there is some novelty, some originality, but unfortunately not written well, or some of the questions are not very, very clear, then what do? Even in the second round, I give a scope for the author to revise back and submit. I mean, in the journals, what do? Authors will submit the manuscript to the editorial board. Editorial board will circulate that paper to the reviewers, and reviewers send the comments to the editorial board. Editorial board, member will take a decision, communicate back the authors, and get them revised. Get that paper revised and resubmitted. Again, get it re-reviewed by the. Again, is very important here in this process. Reviewed, re-reviewed, resubmitted, re-revised, right? Revised, and so on. So again, get the comments, circulate back. This repeats as long as these reviewers are happy about every new version. The moment reviewers become completely happy and found it to be acceptable, then they say that your paper is now accepted. Otherwise, they simply reject it. So it takes about 3 years, 4 years. Sometimes, if the paper's originally written so well, and if while writing the paper itself, authors happen to be experienced people and they themselves got their paper reviewed in multi-dimensions, probably in a single attempt itself, paper may get accepted. That's also true. So, but here, look, the difference between journal and the top level conference proceeding is that in the top level conference proceeding, it is a time bounded, whereas in journal, no time limit, a revision can take place any number of times. So this is what the difference between conference and the journals. Then what are the characteristics of a good publication? Obviously, I say that these are the 7 different characteristics we generally look at while evaluating the goodness of a paper. One, the most important is novelty, and equal importance is the impact. So look at the first and the last are very, very important. Novelty is very important. Unless your paper has some original contribution, your paper will not be accepted for publishing it in the journal. The second one is impact. If that is published, how much does it impact on the readers? I'm not talking about impact factor of a journal. I'm talking about how much does your paper impact on the reader? How much does it disturb the reader? What class of readers does it disturb? If that scope is high, then the probability that your paper gets accepted is equally high. So that novelty and impact are very important, prominent parameters. Then relevance to the scope of my journal, and then how much you covered up the previous references and in what way you quoted, what way you related them, that is very important. Clarity of presentation, technical correctness, linguistic quality I'm looking at sometime, and then how did you validate and justify? If your justification is extraordinarily good, the tendency that your paper get accepted is very high. Then that's what, these are the 7 characteristics that we look at. So if I look at the paper format, every paper should have a title. The moment somebody reads the title, should be in a position to understand what is really conveyed inside the paper. If I read the title, I should be able to guess what is really present inside the title. That doesn't mean that title can be off a page, right? Title should be precise and concise, very, very concise and precise. Should be very catchy. It's like titling a kid, naming a kid. We celebrate naming ceremony, no? Similarly here, when you come out with a research paper, you celebrate titling of the research article. Offer a cup of coffee to the contemporary researchers, conduct a meeting, present your work, expect that, like the way in which you approach your relatives and good friends and Google for better name for kidding, for your kid, Similarly here, while titling your paper, you should approach people, collect the ideas, and then restructure it and come out with a catchy title. The title should convey the complete content of the paper. Once expanded title is what is called abstract. expand the title, right? Answering how, what did you do? So that's called abstract. Then you have some keywords. Today, keywords are mandatory. So to make your papers indexed, available on, computing systems. So see that your paper has got following sections like introduction, where you explain what is the problem that you tackled, what is the relevance of the topic, statement of the topic, objective that you accomplished, etc., etc., and a review of the state of the art, literature survey. You present everything, call it as introduction. Proposed one, it is yours, something which is yours, a new model, step-by-step design. How did you solve? Justification, proof, etc. And if you have some case study, present in the form of algorithm. And otherwise, you straight go to the experimentation, collected data, explain about the data, parameters of each data, attributes, a posterior analysis, and then case, you present fully what you have concluded through experimentation, right? And then don't ever forget to have a discussion section where you compare your model with other existing, both qualitatively and quantitatively, right? So this is a discussion, is a section where you talk about your own work negatively as well as positively, because you are the author, you are the creator, you know everything about your model. You should be in a position to explain what is the goodness of your work and what is the weakness of your work equally. Don't hesitate mentioning this where my work is not acceptable, right? That also deserves some appreciation. Then go with a conclusion. While concluding, don't put the abstract in a past tense. Conclusion is something which is what? Overall, not the summary of the work. Research findings. What did you find? Yes. How did you solve? What did you solve? Fine. After having done everything, what did you learn out of it? That is what is called research findings. That research findings should be made very clear in the conclusion. And then don't forget to acknowledge the people, those who are responsible for success of your research, and list of references. While listing out the references, see that whatever which is listed here is cited inside, and whatever which is cited inside is listed here, right? Then thesis writing. When you talk about thesis writing, so basically abstract, in which I explained in paper, it's an overall gift of accomplishment, but the abstract of a paper is into only one topic, but abstract of a thesis is into multiple topics. That's all the difference. So there must be an introductory chapter. Forget it. Generally, in introductory chapter, we borrow the concepts from other papers, other materials, other resources, right? And then we put the introduction. Literature survey, we read through the many other articles and then restructure our English, and all linguistic qualities improved and appeared well, extremely good. That's introduction. Then contributory chapter. These are the chapters which are created by me now. These are the new chapters, not appeared anywhere, my chapters. So contributory chapters could be many based on your research outcomes. And see that these contributory chapters are sequenced in the sense that there is an evolutionary progress. Output of one is an input for the next, and so on. It is not that the first research should be in the first chapter, secondary research should be in the second chapter, and so on. No, last year research could be even the first chapter, first year research outcome could be in the last chapter. But see that there is some readability, connectivity from chapter to chapter. And while chapterizing your concept, see that every chapter is sufficiently long, independent enough. So that's our contributory chapters. And then a comparative analysis. You can, if you have got multiple models of your own, compare one against other, find the best and the worst, and take the best and the worst and compare them against contemporary models recommended by co-researchers outside your laboratory. And that's what is called canvas your work. Compared. And then I mention future work, do exploratory kind of research for future work. Don't just simply blindly list out some of the aspects, right? And then if you have a complete productization of your thought, present that product, otherwise you can simply neglect it. And then finally, go with a conclusion, and then list out your publications. Just mention these are the publications which I have come out with based on the research outcomes. And then appendix. Appendix is something not mandatory, optional, but it is something, which is equally important for a reader to understand your thesis. It is as important as your contribution. It is equally important for a reader, but that's not your contribution. It is a contribution of somebody, but without reading that, If a reader reads through your thesis, he will find it very difficult to understand. So the appendix is equally important, but unfortunately not your contribution. That's what is called appendix. And then bibliography. There I call it as a reference. Here I call it as a bibliography, because in the reference, I have only limited focus to a single topic. But here I have list of references, not focused to a single topic, but focused to a broader spectrum. That's what is called bibliography. So go with this, all what I explained already. Then look, dear friends, unfortunately, after writing your thesis and then submitting your thesis, once your degree is awarded, your viva is over, and then after 5 years, you read your thesis back again. If I now read my thesis, which I submitted about 23 years back, I really find the following. The part that is good in my thesis is not mine. It is not original. The thesis has 2 parts. The part that is good part and a not a good part. I don't say bad, not good part. The good part is not mine because I borrowed from others. I just have refined it so that it appears good. That's not mine, not original. The part that is original, that's mine, is not good today because it was first drafted. I must feel it. The part that is good is not original. The part that is original is not good. I feel it. Then only I understand that I wrote the thesis for mine. Otherwise, if everything is good, guarantee that there is nothing like mine which appeared first time, right? This is what one important message that you have got to remember while documenting your work. The other one is, this is a conversation between an editorial board of a journal and the author. So after review of the new manuscript means a paper communicated for publication. After reviewing process is over, editor write. I means editor says, I wrote, Dr. Smith is the author. Dr. Smith, we are happy to accept your superbly written paper for publication. Editor writes to the author stating that we are happy to accept your paper, which is superbly written. However, I just could not help adding, tell me who wrote it for you. Look, editor asks the author that your paper is superbly written, but unfortunately, I could not understand who wrote it for you. Dr. Smith, the author, answers back, I am so happy that you found my paper acceptable, but tell me who read it for you. Look here, dear friends, author doesn't accept that. Author says that probably, editor, you must not have read the paper. You got it read by somebody else. Please tell me who read it for you. I mean, this gap in understanding, this communication gap is always there because it's only documentation communication, not talking. So, though I have been publishing papers for many years, but the standard with which I am publishing all papers are not equally good or equally bad, not all of same level. It varies because co-authors vary. So sometimes editors write to me that, Dr. Guru, we never expected this type of paper, bad paper from your team today. Or you must have mentioned me that, oh, this paper is really superb. How come you come out with this idea? Right? That's always there. But see that the documentation should help you in reducing this degree of confusion. I mean, this confusion is always there because participating co-researchers vary from paper to paper, but the documentation is a process of minimizing this degree of confusion to the possible minimum. So that's what is the documentation called Pakka documentation. Dear friends, I am at right time now to sum up my lecture, which I delivered for the last 2 sessions. I just have started explaining you what is called research, why that types of research called basic and applied, and importance. Throughout my lecture, I just explained why research is so important for every one of us and what way it can contribute to our personality. And then mentioned categories like exploratory, constructive, and empirical, besides lab, library, classroom, field, etc. And the research process, starting from formulation of the topic, through hypothesis generation till conclusion of that, and then a documentation. In my lecture, I'm sure that I have just narrated the responsibility of not only the research scholar, but also the research supervisor. And finally, in the last 20 minutes, probably, I must have explained you what is the importance of documentation, why it is so significant, why it is difficult, right? And how much effort of a research scholar has got to be spent for documentation and so on. With this, Let me read my own poem on the topic called research, R-E-S-E-A-R-C-H, research. It is R for reading a lot, R for reading a lot for establishing scientific and engineering aptitude. Even history, the subject called economics, subject called history has got two components. One is scientific component, another one is an engineering component. Something which gets created is because of science. Something which gets made, is called engineering. Even history is created by somebody and made it available, and that's what is called scientific and engineering. Everything has got two components, scientific component and engineering component. Okay, so establishing scientific and engineering aptitude in me so that I become a good personal. So to have a good personal rapport, I have my own rapport, not because I am a son of a great teacher, not because I am a son-in-law of a great politician, but I have got my own personal rapport because of my contribution, my scientific and engineering aptitude to build up my rapport with a great commitment to build up a healthy society for the development of nation. So this is what I understood meaning of research. So reading a lot, you must read a lot. You must be voracious reader, not necessarily into the topic of your interest. Read a lot, read anything for that matter. Be a voracious reader. I'm sure that will help you a lot. Like a donkey reading, eating paper. Donkeys are known for eating paper, right? But the donkeys eat paper into stomach. We, the research scholars, should read paper into mind. So that's the only difference. But the commonality is a beginning researcher is like a donkey, known for hardworking, known for strength. Donkey is known for strength. Donkey is known for hardworking. Similarly, research scholar in the beginning should be like a donkey. And then later should not continue to be donkey. Donkey should get transformed into horse-like animal. Donkey should get transformed into rabbit-like animal, looking so beautiful and known for fast riding, faster movement. You must move fast towards what? Towards the destination. Cover up the area of your interest and then face back. You become like a lion. You are the king of forest. What is your forest? Your area of research. The moment you pursue your research, you should be a king-like personality in that area of research. Ultimate for that. That is transformation of donkey-like personality to a lion-like personality in the topic of your interest, area of your interest is the transformation. And such a process of transformation is what is called research. As a concluding remark, I say research is only a transformation process from bad to good, from a poor performer to a better performer. With this, let me thank you all. Thank you very much for your patience listening. If you have any queries or points for discussion, I'm happy to accept.